Here we are once again. My name is Benji Ross. This is part of Awakening Lands, and this is the Returning Home podcast. We're exploring practices we can do together as small groups and whole communities to deepen relationships to the places we call home. This week, we have a story for you about the surprising power of stories of place. A while back, I was staring at two people, along with myself. Each of us were framed into the neat little boxes of a video call. I was chatting with Anna Castingay and Marcus Roston. Anna and I were getting ready to interview Marcus for a podcast to hear about some projects he's a part of that are dedicated to the environmental and social movements of Erie, Niagara, or Western New York. We were talking about the Birds on Niagara, a birding festival that celebrates the importance of the region for migratory birds. This is partly due to the fast-flowing waters of the Niagara River that remain ice-free year-round, which is amazing, but also makes me feel super cold just thinking about it. While bird migrations are fascinating, they traverse the whole planet. There's just always something about them that's felt kind of distant to me. I don't know, unrelatable. I can't fly, I've tried. But little did I know that the conversation was about to turn in a way that completely transformed how I feel about migrations. Perhaps even more so, how I feel about story. As it turns out, Marcus is interested in many kinds of migration, which is an appropriate way to be in a region that is so vital, not only for bird migrations, but for countless animals that walk the earth. The area is something like a bottleneck, important for animals walking several migratory routes through places like the Great Lakes, the Appalachian Mountains, up into Canada. I've done some long-distance bicycle rides in my life, and it was from those experiences I felt in my imagination what it might be like for animals like a black bear to move day after day, foraging and walking across vast distances. But this little imaginary adventure of following the black bear comes to a screeching halt when we are forced to imagine the first highway or impassable fence that blocks the way. Enter the project Marcus is working on, the Western New York Wildways. And here's Anna to tell us a bit more.
What first drew me to the Western New York Wildways, I think, was the fact that it fully encompasses our region, all the way from Lake Erie in the west to the Genesee River in the east, and from the Allegheny Mountains in the south all the way up to Lake Ontario in the north. And it is meant to be a connecting path to allow for the safe passage of mammals, but also a way to connect the forests that are already there.
What hearing about this project enabled for me was the ability to imagine the landscape itself in a new way. I think we've become so used to seeing the land as a patchwork of different kinds of boxes, private, commercial, public properties, all connected by a dizzying network of roads, highways, and other infrastructure. Basically, I see the land more through a Google map than the eyes of a black bear, unfortunately. But hearing the story of the Western New York Wildways gave me a fascinating new set of eyes. I began to feel the movement of animals, not roads, as the network holding whole landscapes together. Then I saw the map of the Western New York Wildways, and the whole region came to life. The map shows these green corridors that almost make the whole region look like it has a kind of circulatory system. I could feel life flowing around. The map shows all of these existing but separate protected areas, like big patches of forest, with the corridors connecting them. And of course, I've always felt the importance of designated areas for wildlife, but seeing how they could be connected somehow made them all come to life in a new way. Seeing the region held together by these corridors, I could suddenly feel the waters of Erie and Ontario linked to the forests of the Allegheny Mountains, places that previously felt separated by roads, cities, and suburbs. And for those who want to feel some of what I'm talking about, we'll link to the Wildways map on the Western New York Wildways website in the episode notes.
As people learn more about it, the reason why it's so important and eye-opening is that people learn how important contiguous forests and green spaces are, how they form a whole ecosystem, and how having one park over here and another park over there, and having like these green spaces that aren't large enough for a full forest or a full ecosystem is not as good as having something that's fully connected.
And I began realizing that I had felt in that moment at my computer screen something that others are experiencing too. Not just understanding their place differently, but feeling themselves invited into a larger story they could be a part of.
Marcus Roston, the director of the Western New York Wildways, goes to these different presentations and shares these maps and these stories. People can see themselves as part of something much bigger than themselves. So the fact that you are a landowner, or maybe somebody who lives close by to the Western New York Wildway, you might try to protect your little piece of land and do the best you can, but seeing yourself as part of a larger map that is part of this larger movement, really, of creating something that is really going to regenerate our little portion of New York State is really exciting.
And the more I hear about the Western New York Wildways, the more I feel that this is also about what happens when a story reveals a place, how it comes together, how it works, and people begin seeing themselves inside that story. And the Wildways is just one example of a story of place. It's a great one, there's no doubt, but there are countless others in every region waiting to be seen, shared, known, lived into. What this story has taught us is that stories of place can change the place itself because they can change us as parts of it, as participants in it. And if you're someone who has become part of the story of the Wildways, you probably feel what I mean. And if not, what story of place might be waiting for you to hear it and to become a part of it where you live? And sharing stories of place is something we practice in Returning Home. In fact, much of what this podcast is about is learning how stories can help communities see more of the life of place and what becomes possible when they do. If you're sensing returning home is something that can bring more life to your relationship with your place, check us out at awakeninglands.com, where you'll find self-led, individual, or small group activities, and if you're liking it, you can deepen from there. And if you know someone who cares about where they live or someone who might just enjoy this story, please share this podcast episode with them and invite them into the conversation. And to end, I am curious, I have to ask, does the place you call home feel different after this story? Thanks, and hope to see you soon.